Hi, I'm Brian Natter, and welcome to HTML and CSS Basic Training for BigCommerce, brought to you by New Dynamics. In this video, I'll be going over BigCommerce Design View structure, HTML structure and how it's used with BigCommerce, understanding the use of snippets, panels, globals, and language, and how the relationship works within BigCommerce, the do's and don'ts of HTML, and basic CSS structure. In this video, we'll be modifying some of the template pages in BigCommerce so that you really get a good understanding of how to do this yourself. So let's get started with our BigCommerce HTML CSS training. We're going to start by jumping into Design View, and you can do that by clicking the link at the top named Design. This will take us to a page where you'll be able to pick your store template, upload your logo, but we're not really going to focus on that in detail today. We're going to focus on our template pages, which is this button here, Browse Template Files. Now I'm using a template Health Green version 4.8, but you can follow along with any template you're using. It won't affect what you're going to learn today. Let's start by clicking on Browse Template Files. This page is BigCommerce's text editor. On this page, you'll find all the documents you'll need to make any adjustments you want to your template files within your site. Let's go over to the top navigation now. You have a Save button, which saves any of the changes you do to your template. Close, which closes this view. Close and Refresh will close and then refresh the view. Toggle Editor. Toggle Editor will take this view you see here with all your code and turn it into a simple text editor. It takes away the color coding from the tags, as you can see here, and it will take away your line numbers. And then you have recent files. And this is going to be a really handy feature once you start doing your own designs and changing some of these views. It allows you to jump between files you're working on. So I have some files that I've worked on in the past, default, and if I'm going back and forth between these files, it's going to make my life a lot easier by being able to just click them instead of finding them on the left side. On the top left, you have files used by this template, which are all the files associated with the document in use. For us right now, that is default.html. Below this, you have other template files. And this is all your CSS and template files associated with your site. On the right is where your code editor is. And right now, this view is showing us the default.html view. And this is all our HTML for our home page. So default page is associated with our home page. Now that you have a better understanding of this page, let's take a look at the HTML. But first, what is HTML? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and XHTML stands for Extensible Hypertext Markup Language. XHTML was developed after HTML, and it's just a better structured version of HTML. We're not going to get into detail on this, but if you are interested, there's plenty of documentation on the web. Let's talk about terminology. Tag elements, containers, standalone tags. I'm going to start with a clean canvas here. We're going to delete all of this, and we're going to throw in my own HTML. And this is the basic structure of HTML. This is what you need to create a web page at the minimum in XHTML. So let's start pulling this document apart. Up here we have document type, which is letting the browsers know that this is XHTML. And you have some tags, an HTML tag, a head tag, a title tag, and you'll notice that the head tag has a start and a close. This tag here is considered a termination tag, a closing tag. Every open tag needs to be terminated, whether it's terminated with two tags, opening tag and a closing tag, or it can be terminated with. There are very few tags with termination within one tag. So here's an example of one. And this is a line break. This will just give you a space in your browser. So we're going to come back to our original view here, and we're going to continue going down this list. We have a body tag, a P tag, which is container, and this holds information. This has my text here, hello world. And then we have our closing of our body and our closing of our HTML. Now let's take a look at what this page would actually give us in our browsers. So this is what we're looking at. So all that text and all that information on that HTML page only puts out hello world. So let's go take a look back at that page and see why this is doing that. So this HTML is telling the browsers to only display what's in my body. So my title up here is going to show, if you look at the top, I'll just bring this down. If you look over here, it says Hello World. That's my title. My body has a P tag, which stands for paragraph. And this is where my text is being pulled from, Hello World. And I can put anything in here so we can see and test this. That you'll see that if I refresh this, it says Hello World Test. Hopefully this gives you a better understanding that within your body tags is what's going to be displayed for the browsers. Let's get into the differences between tag elements and containers. This is considered a tag element, your head tag. A container is a P. It holds information within it. Another container could be a div. And you'll notice that BigCommerce uses a lot of these throughout their site. Another container could be a table. And information within here would be contained. So now that you have an understanding of opening and closing tags and containers and what information is being held within those containers, let's take a look at how BigCommerce uses this to build their pages. The basic structure of BigCommerce. What you're looking at here is the default.html page, which is your home page. And if you notice before, I deleted all of this information and we just did Hello World as a test. But what you're looking at here, if you remember, body tag open and body tag close is containing all this information within inside of it. And all of this information is what's being displayed to the browser. So let's save this view and take a look. Refresh this. And here's my store template. I just put something together with some products in it. And this is what's being displayed to the browsers from this HTML. We're going to start with this div, and it has an ID of container. So what is an ID? And sometimes you'll see this as a class instead of an ID, and we'll get into that, but for now let's just focus on this ID, specific for this div. This ID is looking at a CSS file, and it's saying, what should I make this div look like? So to start, we can have an imaginary dot on our browser page. Let's do that. Let's take away all of this information and let's start with this imaginary dot. So what I'm doing here, I'm putting an opening div tag and a closing div tag. And if I put nothing inside of this, no content in here, I don't give it any style, what will it look like? What will our page look like? Well, let's save this and take a look at what we just did. We have nothing on our page. So let's understand how we can make this div do something on this page and give it some style. So first what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give this div a class. And think of this as naming this div. And I'm going to just say my initials underscore test. So giving something a class, what you need to do is have, oh, I forgot the equal sign. You need to have a class equals, and we're telling this div that this has a class called bn underscore test. So what is this class actually doing? What the browser is going to say is there any style or JavaScript that says look at this and make something happen with this specific div? BigCommerce uses external style sheets, but for now what we're going to do is just put this style sheet inside of here. I'm just going to go ahead and paste a style in here that I created, and you see that I have a head tag, an open head tag, and a close head tag, and my style is contained within inside that. And inside my style tags I have a class, and you can define a class with this dot here, a period. You'll also see that there's a lot of IDs, and an ID would be a pound sign. So if this was a ID instead of a class, we can do bn underscore test. And we'll leave this here too, just so you can see the difference. that this isn't going to affect anything, because right now the browser will say, okay, let's find an ID of BN test, and there is none on this page, so it's not going to affect or style anything. And then it's going to come down and it's going to say, let's find a class of BN test, and it's going to match this class up with my div that has the class of BN test. And I'm just going to give this a background of black so we can see it, and I know that 000 will give it a black background. And let's save this and see what happens. Let's go ahead and test this, and you'll see once I refresh this that nothing happens. But I did give that a style of black, and I do have my class there on my div. So what's going on here? Well, remember, this right now is an imaginary dot, so we have to give it some size. We have to give it some width and some height. So if I go back here and I do width, and we can give it 100 pixels, and I do a height of 100 pixels, we're going to have a square box that is black. And let's save this and go take a look at what happens. We'll refresh our page, and there's my black box, and it's all the way on the left at the top, because default it says the top left corner. So right now our top left corner is a black div that we created. Now this is very powerful if you get the concept of this, because this is going to allow us to create and move around anything we want within our site. Before I had mentioned an ID. Now an ID on an HTML page can only be used once. A class can be used multiple times. So if I were to create 5 more of these, let's do that, and let's just give some breaks in between. Now this is really sloppy coding. It might be hard to understand this, but I'm just giving you guys examples. And understand that within HTML, the white space doesn't make a difference. So if I have this all the way down here and this all the way over here, it's going to do exactly the same thing as if this was here and this was up here. It makes no difference with HTML. But standards are to be able to read the code properly and understand what's contained within inside of each other to clean it up. And we can do that after. I'll show you some of that techniques. But let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 divs with the class BN on it. And let's go save this and see what happens here. So we have our 4 boxes that we created. Understanding all of the different elements and styles within CSS could take years. But there are easy tools to be able to design and make functionality the way that you want it to be on your page. There are great websites out there. The easiest way to do it and to understand is to go to Google, type in CSS styles, and just go through the pages and read, and they'll give you what a background is. And there's so many different ways to write background. I can do background dash, color, and this is going to have the same exact effect as you saw before. And we'll refresh. So there are many ways to do it. Best thing to do is really get into and understand what each style and element will do to your page. So now what happens if I add a 1 here? We had 4 boxes before. I'm going to let's put a 1 on 2 of these boxes, and let's save. Let's go back and refresh, and 2 of them disappear. Now, this doesn't matter if I were to put it on 1 at the bottom and 1 in the middle. It's going to look exactly the same. There are 2 divs that are being associated with a class and giving it style. Let's move on to our next video, which will go over how to change and adjust styles within BigCommerce.